Hi, it's Lynnea. Today I'm going to be using some Simon Hurley Create products, specifically the re-inkers for his dye ink pads, to do some watercoloring. So this is the Flower Picking Friends stamp set, and it's new from his latest release, and I love this stamp set because these big flowers can be pretty and elegant, or you can add in those cute little critters to have them be like kind of cute and silly. I decided to use them as the forefront of my card and have this be the main image, and I'm going to be watercoloring some simple, elegant flower cards today. I'm stamping all three of the flowers on separate pieces of watercolor cardstock, and I stamped them with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and heat embossed them with clear powder. Whenever I'm doing watercoloring, I like to have that barrier that the clear embossing gives. I have 2 cups of water, one for dirty water, one for clean water. And then I have all of my Simon Hurley Create re-inkers. And I'm going to pick out some of my favorite colors. Now this is, I squeezed probably 3 drops into each little well. That's too much. These dye inks are super, or the re-inkers rather, I should say, are super, super pigmented. You really only need 1 drop. But I'm going to save these in this watercolor palette. I won't rinse these out, and then I'll just add more water and reactivate them for another watercolor project. So I'm going to start here with this flower. I'm not very good at watercoloring, so just bear with me. I'm going to show you how I do it, and then you can definitely adapt this and do it however you like to do it. I'm going to color this like a sunflower. A sunflower is one of my favorite kinds of flowers. I think they're so pretty. So I'm starting out, I squeezed some Over the Moon, Slippery When Wet, and Gur re-inker into this watercolor palette. I have my clean water on my left, and I'm just going to add some clean water onto the onto the area that I want to color, so that it has just a light sheen of water. And then I'm going to dip my brush into that re-inker and just kind of dot my brush and let the ink pool and push itself down into the water. For the green, I'm using Overzealous. I thought that was a bright and happy spring green color. And now when you're watercoloring with the re-inkers, the re-inkers are thicker than like a liquid watercolor, but I think they work pretty much the same way. So I'm just going to continue on. I like to add that sheen of water and then dip my brush in, and really I'm only picking up color on the very tip of my brush, because as soon as I started coloring with these, I realized how pigmented these re-inkers are, and you really don't need a lot. A little goes a really, really long way, which is so awesome. So I added a wash of the Over the Moon to this little sunflower, and then I'm going to come in here with the Slippery When Wet and just add a little bit more of that brownish dimension towards the center of the flower and where the petals kind of reach the center. I don't even know what it's called technically, the center part of the flower, and just to add a little bit of dimension. For this flower here, I'm going to color it with Bee Sting, and I love how deep and vibrant this red color is from the re-inker. So for this one, I kind of did it a little bit differently. I still added that sheen of water, but then I added the re-inker color with my brush just towards where the edge of the petal was, where the petal kind of meets the center part of the flower. And then I cleaned my brush off and came in with clean water and dabbed that color towards the outside, and that kind of gives me a lighter edge and a darker center of each of the petals. And I kind of work every other petal so that the color doesn't bleed. I found that these dried fairly quickly because I'm not really using a lot of water and a lot of color, but I still tried my best to work every other petal so that the colors didn't overlap. Now I did have just a little bit of kind of like bleeding around the edges, so I went around with Minty Fresh and watered that down just to create a light halo of ink around each of the flowers, and anywhere that my ink bled out, the Minty Fresh halo covered that up. So that's just one of my tricks when you kind of color outside the lines, is just outline it. And then I added some black flicks of watercolor just because I like the texture. Whenever I have a simple focal point kind of background card, I like to add those black flicks because I think it just brings everything together. And also, if you happen to mess up anywhere, it helps to cover up any ink smudges or anything like that. I stamped out some of the sentiments from the Flower Picking Friends stamp set, and I white heat embossed them on black cardstock. I'm just going to add them across the bottom center of the stem of the flowers, and I'll pop that up with a double layer of foam tape. Now I'm using some liquid pixie dust to add some sparkle to all of the flowers and to the leaves, and that will finish off all 3 of these cards. So I really hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial, watercoloring with the Simon Hurley Create Dye Ink Reinkers and the Flower Picking Friends stamp set. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you soon. Bye!